Hello, this is not Richard Stashy, but this is Tinkered of Tales. This is the Missus, and I am coming to you today with a tale we've really been wanting to cover for a while. So, as you can probably tell from the title, this is a ghost story. I hesitate to call myself a paranormal researcher because I don't go around on investigations with gadgets trying to prove that things exist. But I have done research, and the paranormal has been an area of serious interest for me for a long time, way before it was trendy. I consider myself well read on the subject and knowledgeable enough. The story we're discussing is actually from a TV show from the mid-90s, but I want to point out for anyone that might not be aware, many of the paranormal shows that are popular today are very different from how they were before the Blair Witch Project came out in the late 90s. Back then, there were only a few popular long-running shows that delved into the unexplained, like Unsolved Mysteries, Sightings, and In Search Of. But there were also some less popular shows and documentaries around back then that you could scour the TV guide for to find on late at night or middle of the day. This is just my opinion, but the paranormal is so ingrained in pop culture these days, and it seems so easy to make up a claim and gain some publicity and turn a profit from it. It's getting increasingly harder to weed out the real from the exploitation. But in the 90s and earlier, I don't feel it was as easy or profitable to fake the paranormal. I think you really needed to be committed to getting your story out there to get any attention at all. And if you came out publicly with a story, you usually weren't doing yourself any favors. I've heard so many reports of negative attention, ridicule, and people in their families just suffering from someone coming out publicly with an experience. That said, I don't like to tear anyone down for their beliefs or lack thereof. Even with this topic being so popular, I feel like there's a stigma with having certain beliefs, like it's somehow contrary to being intelligent. I am so over that. I like to say I'd much rather be a fool for believing in something than a fool for believing in nothing, or a fool for not believing for that matter. So, the story at hand. I saw this in the mid-90s, and it still stands out to me as one of the most incredible ghost stories I've ever heard. It aired on a show called The Extraordinary that was actually a show out of Australia, but it also ran in the US and other parts of the world. It was more like a supernatural leaning version of Unsolved Mysteries. The first and last episode featured this particular story told by Telly Savalas, but they were edited a little bit differently in each episode. I'm going to try to sandwich them together to get the fullest version. You can also find this Telly Savalas clip all over YouTube, but I have yet to see someone go into depth on just how amazing the story really is, if you believe it. I want to play his segment here and go over some of the points, and I believe this is kind of free reign since it's everywhere, but I am totally providing commentary, so I think it's legit fair use. Also, while preparing this video, I realized we are coming up to Telly's 100th birthday on January 21st, 2022, and the anniversary of his death the day after on January 22nd, so I hope this serves as a nice tribute to him as well. So without further ado, I give you Telly Savalas telling one of the most incredible ghost stories ever.
And what I'm about to tell you is true if you want to hear it.
I do want to hear it.
You do want to hear it, then I'll tell you. I was never superstitious.
I'll give you a ride.
But then something happened in my life which scared the hell out of me. And for something like that to happen to me is something that I can't understand to this day. God knows how many years ago. Let me think now. 58, 59. It's a lot of years ago.
Now, here he says 58 or 59, but I think it's actually 1955, and I'll get into why later.
No, I just left off a date. Beautiful young girl since left us. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going home to Long Island after dropping her off. And as would happen, I ran out of gas. And I go into this White Castle restaurant. I says, is there a gas station open? He says, yeah. He says, you walk through the woods there. He says, get on the Grand Central Parkway, take it to the Cross Island Parkway. He says, and the gas station there open all night. Okay. So I am, start walking through the woods, a wooded area, not the woods, going up, and as I'm doing that, I hear a voice say,
I'll give you a ride.
I turn around, and there's this guy in the Cadillac. And I didn't hear the Cadillac.
You hear the voice, and what do you see?
I see a guy in a white suit, and I hear an effeminate voice. He say, I'll give you a lift. I said, that's very nice. I said, I'm going to a gas station. We get to the gas station, talking very nice. And I'm fumbling around in my pockets. And he says, I'll lend you $1. Well, I didn't ask him for money. And the truth is, I was broke. And I said, well, look, I says, you know, I work for the State Department, and, well, anyway, give me your name and address, all right? Allow me to mail it to you, because I'm very embarrassed. Anyway, I go there, I get a can, pay for the gas. And we start driving back to my car to put the gas in the car, and I thought that was very nice of him. And then in the clear blue sky, he says, I know, I'm not going to mention the name, I know so-and-so. And it's a baseball player. We weren't talking baseball. Oh, I said, who's he? He says, well, he's a
Utility infielder for the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, it's so bizarre that he would say it in the spookiest voice I ever heard. He kept driving, get to my car, put the gasoline in. He pushes me to get it started, My car starts. I thank him very much. All in all, it's a very lovely experience to meet someone to help you out like that. No incident whatsoever. Go home, go to work in the morning, get out in the afternoon, this headline in the then Journal American. So-and-so dead. The guy he mentioned in that very spooky voice, age 20-some-odd, young ball player, under very mysterious circumstances. Autopsy and all that stuff. I said, God, what a frightening coincidence. I go home and I says, hey, Ma, isn't that funny? My mother, I think, was part witch. I explained it to her. She says, well, yeah, Telly, strange things that do happen. I said, but. And then I remembered that he gave me a piece of paper for me to send $1 to. I look at it, and there besides the address is a telephone number. Okay. Pick it up and I call the number. Jimmy's Bar. Oh, I said, well, can I speak to Mr. Cullen, please? Oh, Mr. Cullen, just a minute. Woman gets on the phone.
Who's calling?
Hi, may I speak to Mr. Cullen, please?
He's not here.
Well, when do you expect him?
Who is this?
I says, well, I was with Mr. Cullen last night, and he gave me this telephone number, and he said I could reach him here. She says,
Look, you son of a bitch, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about my husband, and he's been dead for 2 years.
Anyway, I wouldn't let it go. I did get in touch with the woman again. I did meet her in New York. She came down from Boston. Because, you know, this is a little too much. The clothes I described were the clothes he was buried in. The piece of paper that he gave me signed James Cullen. She brought a letter that he wrote her when he was in the Army. It had Jimmy on that. Outside of that, the signature is identical. There was only one thing that was different. I said he had a high voice. She said, oh, no, she said. He had a deep voice like yours. Oh. Then it meant he killed himself. This way, right through the voice. box, whatever. Anyway, this story happened to a guy like me, and as I say, it's been haunting me now close to 40 years. I'm playing golf right here in California. And I think it's the 7th hole, or the 6th hole, at El Caballero. I think it's a par 3. And as we're shooting, I'm playing with famous personality here called Dennis James. And the guy, Merrill Heater, who's the nephew of Gabriel Heater, a commentator in this country. And as we approach the tee, from far away I hear this guy on top of a hill saying, "Telly," and I turn around. I started shaking because the voice was somehow familiar. He says, "Did you hear what happened in Dallas?" I said, "What?" Then I asked Dennis, "Did you hear that?" "Yeah." I said, "What did he say?" He said, "I don't know." And now I'm shaking. We play the 7th hole, play the 8th hole, play the 9th hole. We go inside to get something to eat. We're sitting down. Television is on. I order whatever the hell I ordered. Then Walter Cronkite breaks in. The president has just been shot in Dallas, Texas. Oh, God. That's how I was.
Same voice you heard in that car that night.
Yeah.
A man dressed in white.
And an hour and a half before the bulletin broke on CBS. At time, they shot him. That's only half the story. I'm not going to tell you the rest. It doesn't end there. I wish the hell it would. But as I say, to happen to somebody like me is, I don't comprehend. Because if 2 don't make 4, 2 and 2, it startles me.
So there it is. Let's get into it. The baseball player he doesn't name, and I think I know why, I believe is Harry Aganis, based on the clues in the reenactment. I've seen this called out on other discussion groups as well, so I don't want to take credit for discovering the name, but a quick search on baseball players in the Red Sox that died young in the 1950s doesn't produce anyone else, so it's most likely him. Harry Aganis was a baseball player that died suddenly, unexpectedly from a pulmonary embolism at the age of 26 on June 27th, 1955, after a bout of pneumonia, which is why I think the story took place in June 1955. So what is so incredible about this story is, yes, his way of telling the story is so casual and compelling, and the detail he provides makes it so believable. He gives street names, the general location. He's at a White Castle. I think there is a White Castle, or actually a couple White Castles in that area today, but there could have been another one at that time. He has receipts. He gets the guy to give him his phone number, his address. He has his signature. He talks to his wife. She hangs up on him, which would be enough to make it a believable story. But then he goes to Caesar. He meets her, shows her the piece of paper, verifies his signature, verifies the clothes he's wearing. Coming to you as someone with HR experience, that kind of verification is very impressive. This story is also a reverse of the classic hitchhiker urban legend story, where someone picks up a hitchhiker on the side of the road, gets their address, takes them home, and finds out one way or another that person or someone fitting that description had died years ago. In my experience, I haven't actually heard that story, or at least a very compelling version of it, from someone that actually had the experience, which is why it's touted as an urban legend. In this version, the living person is the hitchhiker, and the dead is the Good Samaritan. This is one of the only stories I have heard in modern day with so much to back it up, with so much interaction with the physical world, a spirit operating a motor vehicle being driven from point A to point B and back, you really don't hear about that kind of interaction. I suppose this guy, James Cullen, could have faked or survived his death. Maybe he was escaping a bad situation. Maybe his wife was in on it, and this was his way of giving her a note that he's still around and okay. Maybe he had a near-death experience that changed his perception, and he was straddling the realms, being a good Samaritan in his Cadillac. Or maybe the person was a medium. I have heard of mediums taking on the voice and physical features of the person they're channeling. Either way, it's a really cool story. But there's more details here, and getting into these details is what makes it so much cooler of a story. Either Telly did his homework and whipped up a doozy of a tale, or maybe it really did happen. Another interesting point about this is the baseball player Harry Aganis that's mentioned. Harry is actually his nickname, just like Telly is Telly Savalas' nickname. Harry's real name is Aristotle. Telly's real name is Aristotelis. Not much different. Both derive from Aristotle, the Greek philosopher. Maybe this was a common name in the Greek community in New England back in that time. They were both born in the 20s. But I've never heard of anyone else in modern times with that name. Something else that bugged me about this story was I had a hard time understanding why he would provide the name of a private citizen, James Cullen, and not a famous baseball player, Harry Aganis. But after thinking about it, I believe the reason is the same reason he said this happened in 1958 or 1959 and not 1955. From all that I know of Telly Savalas, he was a great guy and a real gentleman, but no one's perfect, and it's well known that he was a bit of a ladies' man. In this story, Telly says he was on a date with a lady, and back in 1955, he was still married to his first wife, and they didn't divorce until 1957. He remarried in 1960, so by giving the time frame as 58 or 59, and not giving the name of the ball player whose date of death might give away the date this happened, spares him and his family the embarrassment of him admitting to being on a date when he was married. From what I've heard, he remained on good terms with all his ex-wives, which I think is a pretty amazing feat. I hope it's not too besmirching of his character to note this now, but I think the fact that he made his best attempts to conceal this is actually very sweet and respectful to his family and is very redeemable. So the other theory I had is maybe Telly is trying to hoodwink us. Of course, I didn't know him personally, but from what I learned, acting was not a career he pursued at first. It was kind of something that fell in his lap. He was tickled with being regarded as such an impressive actor. I think he said something along the lines of worrying about being found out that he wasn't a classically trained actor the first few years of his career. He seemed to have had a bit of a charming smugness about his ability, and he was always trying to push the limits of what he could do. So I can totally see him saying he's going to tell the craziest ghost story with so much grave conviction that you're going to believe it, as kind of a way to flex his acting ability. Maybe everything happened as he said, and he just added a couple embellishments here and there to make an actual story a ghost story. Who knows? I like to believe it as he told it. As I said, it really didn't do anyone favors back in those days to tell a story like this. Telly was well into his career and getting on in years, so he didn't really need to prove his ability at this point. He passed away, I think, within a year of this airing, and throwing the fact that he might have been trying to hide this story because telling it would mean admitting to being on a date while he was married. He could have changed any part of the story, including saying he was just doing something else, or even not adding the part about the baseball player. but he didn't. He told it this way and just changed the dates a little bit. So that's the story. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you want to watch this or any other episodes of The Extraordinary, there are almost 50 of them out on the AUFOA, Australian UFO Action YouTube channel. Lots of really cool stories. I think these episodes are all that are out there right now. Let us know if you like this video. We do have some other tales like this in mind we can cover if you do like it. But just a little disclaimer, while I am interested in the paranormal, UFOs and space stuff are way outside my scope. For those of you into that, great. I totally believe there's life out there. It just freaks me out. I'm very earthbound, so I hope you forgive me for shying away from that topic. Thanks for watching and hope to see you soon.